If you wore a uniform before 1990, there are 3 policy updates sitting right in front of you that could increase your monthly income, erase a medical debt, or unlock a benefit for your spouse that the vast majority of military families never pursue. None of these require combat experience, none require an attorney, and 2 of them still apply even if someone previously told you that you were ineligible. By the time this video wraps up, you'll have a clear picture of all 3, including the one tucked inside legislation that most veterans have never come across. I hold no professional license. But on this channel, every single week I break down the financial details that genuinely matter to older Americans, the rules that recently shifted, the benefits you already have access to, and the concrete steps that can make a measurable difference in what you bring home each month. This is the kind of content I produce every week, and it's exactly the kind of information you don't want to scroll right past. So if this is helpful to you, go ahead and click subscribe and switch on notifications so you catch the next one. Now let's dive in. Rule 1 centers on Camp Lejeune, and it affects a far broader population of veterans than most people realize. Between 1953 and 1987, the drinking water at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina was heavily contaminated with industrial chemicals and toxic solvents. For many years, anyone who had lived or worked on that installation, including family members and not just active duty personnel, had virtually no avenue for financial relief. That changed when the Camp Lejeune Justice Act was signed into law. If you were stationed there or even resided on the base as a dependent for a minimum of 30 days during that time frame, and you later developed one of an expanding list of recognized medical conditions, you may now be entitled to submit a claim. This is not a VA disability rating process. It is an entirely separate legal claims pathway, and it covers a wide range of conditions including certain cancers, kidney disease, and Parkinson's disease. The piece that almost no one explains is that this applies even if you separated from the military many decades ago and have never once submitted a VA claim. It's also important to understand how this differs from a standard VA disability claim because the two are frequently confused with one another. A VA disability claim produces a recurring monthly compensation payment based on a percentage rating. A Camp Lejeune claim functions more like a legal settlement, and it is designed to address harm that has already occurred, including past out-of-pocket medical expenses, not only a continuing medical condition. That means records of medical costs you paid years or even decades ago can still carry weight in a claim you file today. Holding on to old medical bills, even ones you assumed were no longer relevant, can meaningfully strengthen any filing you submit now. Robert is a retired machinist living in Jacksonville, North Carolina, who spent 18 months at Camp Lejeune in the late 1970s before receiving his discharge. He developed kidney disease in his 60s and never connected it to his time in the military. It wasn't until a neighbor brought up the water contamination issue that he decided to look into it further. He submitted a claim, documented his time on the installation through his service records, and received a settlement that covered years of medical expenses he had already paid entirely out of his own pocket. Robert didn't navigate anything complicated. He simply had no idea the rule existed until someone brought it to his attention. Rule 2 involves the expansion of presumptive conditions under the PACT Act, and this is the change with the broadest reach across different service eras. For years, veterans who had been exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam or to burn pits and other airborne toxic hazards in later conflicts were required to prove a direct connection between their illness and their military service before the VA would approve a disability claim. That process could drag on for years and frequently ended in outright denial. The PACT Act reversed that burden entirely. If you served in a location and during a time period that the VA now formally recognizes and you have developed one of the conditions on the approved list, that connection is presumed to exist automatically. You are not required to prove it. The VA considers it already established. This is enormously significant for anyone who served prior to 1990 because the qualifying list includes Vietnam-era locations, specific periods of Korean DMZ service, and other documented exposure sites stretching back several decades. Conditions covered include multiple forms of cancer, respiratory illnesses, and hypertension, which was added to the list more recently, and applies to a very large number of Vietnam-era veterans who were previously unable to link their blood pressure condition to their service history. If you filed a disability claim years ago and received a denial because you couldn't establish that connection, you may now be able to refile under the updated presumptive framework and reach a completely different outcome. It's worth pausing on that for a moment because many veterans hear the words "I already applied for that" and consider the matter settled. A denial issued 10 or 15 years ago was evaluated under an older and far stricter standard. That standard has since changed. Your denial did not automatically update to reflect the new rules unless you went back and filed again. There's also a critical detail that frequently gets overlooked on the survivor side. If a veteran died from a condition that is now classified as presumptive but was not officially recognized as such at the time of death, a surviving spouse may be able to file for dependency and indemnity compensation by retroactively connecting the cause of death to military service under the current guidelines, even if an earlier claim, when one existed, was denied long ago. One important caveat worth noting is that presumptive status does not mean guaranteed automatic approval. You still need your service records confirming that you were present in a qualifying location during a qualifying time period. Pulling your DD-214 and any deployment or duty station documentation is therefore the essential first step, not something to handle as an afterthought. So here's what I want you to look at: the benefits, the discounts, and the assistance programs that most seniors qualify for but never actually take advantage of. I've pulled them all together in one place, organized by state and by program type, so you don't have to spend hours sorting through confusing government websites. It's straightforward, it's easy to navigate, and any senior can quickly identify exactly what applies to their situation. No matter which state you call home, there is almost certainly assistance available that you're currently leaving unclaimed. It's called the Senior Exempt Patient Playbook, and it's linked in the pinned comment directly beneath this video. Just tap it once and you'll have access to everything you need. Now stay right here because the final rule is where military retirement pay and VA disability benefits actually intersect. The offset that almost no one fully understands just got smaller. And for some retirees, it means several hundred additional dollars arriving in their bank account every single month. Rule 3 is about concurrent receipt, and it's the one that catches even longtime beneficiaries off guard. If you retired from the military after completing 20 years of service, you receive military retired pay. If you also carry a service-connected disability rating from the VA, you receive VA disability compensation. For a significant stretch of time, federal law mandated an offset between those two payments. For every dollar of VA disability compensation you received, your military retired pay was reduced by that exact same amount. You weren't receiving both payments in full. You were receiving one total split across two separate sources. Concurrent retirement and disability pay, commonly referred to as CRDP, was established to gradually eliminate that offset for retirees holding a disability rating of 50% or higher. Over time, the eligibility rules surrounding the program have expanded, and veterans who were told years ago that they fell short of the qualifying threshold may now meet it, particularly if their disability rating has gone up since their last formal review. There is a related program also worth understanding called Combat-Related Special Compensation, which operates under a different set of rules and applies specifically when the disability is connected to combat, a hazardous duty assignment, or an instrumentality of war, even when the rating falls below the 50% mark. The two programs are not interchangeable, and you cannot collect benefits from both simultaneously for the same disability. But many military retirees never actually compare which one would pay them more and simply remain in whichever program they were initially enrolled in. It's worth requesting a direct side-by-side comparison from the office that manages your retired pay, rather than assuming that your original enrollment is still the more financially beneficial arrangement, because a shift in your disability rating over time can quietly flip which program delivers the greater amount. There's also a connected correction that widows and widowers need to be aware of. For many years, a surviving spouse receiving both a survivor benefit plan annuity through the military and dependency and indemnity compensation from the VA saw their SBP payment reduced dollar for dollar by the DIC amount they received, something widely referred to in military communities as the widow's tax. That offset has since been fully eliminated, which means a surviving spouse who was informed long ago that their SBP payment would permanently be reduced may now be entitled to the complete amount from both sources simultaneously. If that situation applies to your household, a direct phone call to verify your current payment status is well worth the effort because these corrections are not always applied automatically to older cases. Margaret is a Navy widow living in Pensacola, Florida, whose husband passed away more than 10 years ago. For years, she received a reduced SBP payment as a result of the DIC offset and simply accepted that reduction as a permanent feature of her benefits. When the offset was legislatively eliminated, her payment was not automatically corrected by anyone. She had to contact the appropriate office herself to confirm her status. Once she did, her monthly SBP payment increased, and it has remained at that higher level ever since. Nothing about her personal circumstances had changed at all. Only the governing rule had. There are several additional pieces connected to pre-1990 service that deserve a place on your radar, even if they don't rise to the level of a standalone major category. VA pension, sometimes referred to as Veterans Pension or Improved Pension, is a needs-based benefit available to wartime veterans with limited income and assets, and it is entirely separate from disability compensation. It gets overlooked regularly because people assume VA benefits are reserved exclusively for those who sustained a combat injury. But a veteran from the Vietnam era or the Korean War era with no service-connected disability whatsoever can still be eligible based on income and net worth figures that are updated on a periodic basis. Building on top of that is aid and attendance, an additional monthly benefit amount available to veterans or surviving spouses who require assistance with everyday activities or who are largely confined to their home. And it can be added to a VA pension or considered alongside other applicable benefits in certain circumstances. Many families never submit an application because they assume a modest retirement income automatically disqualifies them, without ever actually comparing their financial picture against the current eligibility thresholds. On the housing side, veterans who carry a service-connected disability rating are generally exempt from paying the VA loan funding fee on a home purchase or refinance transaction. And that exemption is sometimes missed on the paperwork by lenders who do not specialize in VA loan products, meaning some veterans have paid a fee they were never legally obligated to pay. If you have closed on a VA loan within the past several years and held a disability rating at the time of closing, it is worth reviewing your closing disclosure to confirm whether that fee was properly waived on your transaction. And completely separate from the federal loan program, many individual states maintain their own property tax exemption programs for disabled veterans, layered entirely on top of whatever the federal government provides. These exemptions vary considerably from one state to the next, with some tied to reaching a specific disability percentage threshold and others offering a complete property tax exemption regardless of the rating level. They are almost never applied to your account automatically. You typically have to file a separate application directly with your county assessor's office, and the paperwork involved is usually a fraction of what a federal disability claim requires. Let's come back to where this all started. 3 policy changes, all sitting quietly within programs that most veterans already technically have access to, none of them requiring combat experience, a legal professional, or any type of connection that other people don't already have. Camp Lejeune claims are open to anyone who was present on that base for even a single month during a 34-year window. PACT Act presumptive conditions remove the burden of independently proving that your illness originated from your military service. Concurrent receipt and the elimination of the SBP-DIC offset can both result in more money reaching a retiree's or a surviving spouse's account without requiring any new disability application at all. None of these outcomes happen through luck. They happen because someone took the time to find out whether the rules applied to their situation. Here is your action checklist. Pull your DD-214 and any deployment or duty station records so you have documented proof of where and when you served, since that paperwork is the foundation underlying every single claim discussed in this video. If you or any family member spent time at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1987, look into the claims process even if you've assumed too much time has passed, and hold on to any old medical bills connected to conditions from that period. If you were ever denied a VA disability claim for a condition linked to Agent Orange exposure, burn pit exposure, or hypertension, seriously consider refiling under the current presumptive eligibility rules, since a past denial does not determine what a future filing will produce. If you are a military retiree carrying a disability rating of 50% or higher, or a rating connected to combat or hazardous duty, compare CRDP and combat-related special compensation directly rather than assuming you were already placed into the right one. If you are a surviving spouse currently receiving SBP payments, call to confirm whether the DIC offset has been correctly removed from your payment calculation. Explore VA pension and aid and attendance. If you are a wartime-era veteran with a modest income level, even if you have never submitted a disability claim at any point in your life. If you have a VA-backed loan, review your closing documents carefully to confirm that the funding fee exemption was properly applied if you were eligible for it at that time. And contact your county assessor's office to find out whether your state provides a property tax exemption for disabled veterans, since it requires a completely separate filing from anything done at the federal level. None of this demanded special access or insider knowledge unavailable to everyone else. It only required knowing that the rule existed in the first place. Most veterans who have successfully used these programs didn't work through everything in a single afternoon. They investigated one item, resolved it, and moved on to the next one the following month. No one was ever going to walk up and hand you this list.